nice weather here. Hopefully you shared in that. And as usual, this is these Monday calls, this is the time for you to ask questions, tell us if things have gone crazy on you, or things you've got some hurdles, things you have questions on. Please, this is the time to bring them up. If you've got a question, everybody else has this. There's a lot of other people will be having here thinking the same thing, so everybody can benefit from that. So if you've got questions or concerns, please bring them up now. As we move into this September-October marketing season, hopefully you've all scheduled events, so you will be having them here in the next week or so, or next week should be when you should be having your first one. If you haven't got them scheduled for September, you just blew 50% of your marketing season for the next 6 months. So if you haven't done that, you better get off your keister and get stuff scheduled for October, and get 2 scheduled for October, because after October, you've already blown. If you skip September, you've already blown it, half your marketing season. So please, if you have not set stuff up, get it set up for October and get 2 done in October. So what I want to do today as we move into this marketing season, I want to go through the event, the Take Your Brain for a Jog event, and make sure that we're concentrating on the points that we want to get home. This is actually, I have a video on this on the website, but I want to review this with everybody as we move into that seminar season, so you're keyed in on the things that you need to do to make sure you get the most appointments. And next week we're going to actually just spend the whole Monday talking about how making sure you get the most appointments. So today we're going to go through and figure out what is our point with the event, because you have to make sure you're making the appropriate points with the event, or you're not going to get a lot of appointments, or the appointments won't stick. So again, I know this is going to be a repeat. Hey, Missy, can you mute yourself, because we can hear you typing quite loudly. Thanks. So we're going to. This is a summary of things that you already have available to you, but I want to make sure as you go into the season, you've spent money on these events, that you get the most possible from them. So any questions we have before we get started here?
I do have a question that came in. Eric said that he had a couple cancel their reservations. How do we recommend handling those, as well as no-shows in the event? He is holding another event just 3 miles away in like another 6 weeks. So obviously he'll invite them to that, but is there anything else that he should do, and should he call, or should it be better his staff to call?
No, that's a good question. The staff should call, and they should be invited to the next one. You shouldn't try to get them in between. One-on-one appointments, guys, do not work. One-on-one appointments do not work because people have all of their defenses up. I mean, that's why people who want marketing that's one-on-one are swimming up a tsunami, not just up the stream. They're swimming up a tsunami, because think about it. Do you ever want to go one-on-one with a salesperson, or would you rather go in a group? You go in a group so you can have anonymity, so you're not going to feel like there's going to the salesperson is going to try to single you out and force you to buy from them. So trying to get people in one-on-one is a very difficult thing. So no, I would, since you have another one so soon, with 6 weeks is soon, I would go ahead and invite them to that one. Say, we understand things come up, but we'd like to invite you in the next one, and look for that. I'd just have them call and say, look for that new invite 6 weeks from now. And you can always make the offer, or if you'd like, we would certainly be happy to speak with you one-on-one if you choose to do that. But you don't want to try to go for that. It's more as an aside. Hey, that's available too if you want it, but don't go for that, because people don't want to meet one-on-one. Okay. Other questions, Missy?
Nope, that's the only thing for now.
Okay, super. Okay, so we'll get started on the Take Your Brain for a Jog and what we're trying to do here. So, and I'd be appreciative to anybody who tells me what they think we're trying to do at each of these places. See how well. Oh, before I do that, I do want to talk about Steve Sumas, who he's a guy that's new to the industry. He's actually been very successful in the banking industry, in the IT area, and he took an early retirement and has gone into this industry. And I'll tell you that he's never. Oh, Missy, you're gonna have to mute yourself again there. Thanks. So he is new to the industry, has never done an event before, never spoken in public before about finances, has never sold a product before, has never done anything before. In his first event, he ended up getting over 80% appointments. So I talked to him and said, what did you do differently? He said, well, I did all of what you did with the Take Your Brain for a Jog, but I did add a few things there. And actually, Missy has put on the front page when you sign in to the website, there's updates on what he's done, but we'll talk about those today. And it's actually, he just changed slide 8, slide 69, and slide 80. So as we get to those slides, somebody make sure we stop and talk about that a little bit on what he did or changed. And it wasn't big changes, but you know what? Even if they're little changes, and he got an 80% appointment ratio being his first event ever, let's take a look at what he did, and he might want to incorporate that. Okay? So we'll go ahead and get started. So what are we trying to accomplish? Because I'm not going to go through the script here. I want to go through exactly what we're trying to accomplish at each one of these slides or portions of the event. So what are we trying to accomplish with the whole lottery or Powerball portion of the event? Well, we're simply trying to get them participating right up front.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
If you're not getting people at this point to call these types of things out, or getting somebody's shouting funny things or comical things, then you know you're going to have to work that much harder for the rest of the event, because this should be very easy to get them calling things out. So that's all we're trying to do here. Okay, so what's our point? Let me get here. About, now we're getting the lucky part. It's just simply here talking about the difference between getting lucky and letting things happen to you. So the point we're making here to folks is that it is possible to get luckier. Okay. Now, why would we want to bring that out? Because throughout the whole event, we're going to be talking about that letting things happen to you or taking control of what happens to you. And we really want to start to lay this out right here. And I will bring up the fact, don't, as you're going through the video that we have on the site of what's the point of each slide, don't worry about memorizing the point for each slide. Do not worry about memorizing the point for each slide. What I want you to do is have in your brain that there is a theme to what we're doing here. So you don't need to memorize every single point. If you miss the point on one slide, it's not going to kill you. If you miss the point to all the slides, yeah, that'll kill you. But don't worry about getting all wound up in a stressful ball about, oh, I got to remember the point for each slide. No. The reason I have a point on each slide is so that you hit most of the points, because you do want the audience to get the idea that there is a theme here. And the theme is not entertainment. The theme is not having fun. The theme is not doing puzzles. The theme is they're in a world of hurt if they don't meet with you. By the end of the event, I want them to be feeling that, wow, there's all sorts of things I didn't know about and my advisor doesn't know about, and if I don't meet with these people, I'm going to be in a world of hurt as well. I mean, at the end, you want them having that feeling, not just, wow, that was really fun. You don't want them leaving with just that feeling. Okay? What kind of coins did you hand out to participants? You can do any number of coins. Sacagawea coins, which are the little copper-colored coins or gold-colored coins. Half dollars, silver dollars, $2 bills. What you want to do is constantly be going to banks. Every time you go to a bank, ask them if they have any of those coins, because they usually don't carry a lot of them at any one time. So you want to be gathering them all the time, so you always have a stash of them. Okay? So what do we do? Okay, we talked about getting luckier. Okay, so this is the first slide that Steve changed, and what he did is he gave a little commercial here to what he did. So when he said, "My name is," he said, you know, my name is Mike Kastelnick, and blah 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 blah, and he says, "I'm a financial planner with Kastelnick and Clark, and we provide Social Security planning, tax recommendations to lower taxes, guidance with legal documents, survivor guides, strategic asset income strategies. In other words, how to pull more money out of your assets with less risk." And my goal is to leave you here with, okay, and then we just get into the regular slide. So basically what he's doing here is giving you a commercial on what he does. So that as people go in at slide 8, as people go in, they know what you do. Now, I have had a lot of people say, "Mike, why are you waiting until slide 8 to tell them who you are?" Basically, that is the current thoughts on how you introduce yourself. Think about a movie. 50 years ago, they used to run about 10 minutes of who the movie was written by, who the producers are, who the script. They used to run all the credits at the front of the movie. Do they do that now? Or as soon as the movie starts, are you into the action? And then after the first scene of action, that's when they pull back, and even they start to run an abbreviated amount of credits, and even while those abbreviated amount of credits are going on, they still have action going on in the background of those credits. So that's the reason we do it. We want to get them engaged immediately, because do they really care who you are, guys? No. Do they really care about your credentials? No. What do they care about when they come? Themselves. Their entertainment, their interests, themselves, how it pertains to them. So we want to get them engaged immediately. That's why we do the lottery up front. And then in slide 8, that's when we introduce them. And what Steve added here, and I think is a fantastic idea, is to give them a little commercial on exactly what you do. Okay? But not until you get them engaged and having a little fun. And we've actually added that. Missy's Steve was kind enough to give us what he's put in there, and we've added that to the script at slide 8. Okay? So any questions on that? Okay? So we'll go through that. So every day we're presented with choices. The point we're making here is we're not just talking today about what? Money. We're talking about everyday life. Okay? You can actually make your luckier choices. So the point we're making here is being lucky is you can greatly enhance your chance of being lucky. So positive attitude helps, etc. But is there a way to stack odds in your favor? So we want them to again realize that there are things that you can do. We're just giving them an example there. Probability strategies work. The point we're making here is we already use these strategies in everyday life. An example of that is with our health, right? What is the chance? And then we go through, and our point here is that, well, if you think about it, guys, can I get an answer? What do you think our point is here, guys, about this whole birthday thing? Why do we bring up the birthday thing? Just for entertainment? No, why do we bring it up? Because remember, we just went here and said, hey, probability is common sense. I mean, just use your common sense. You don't need to have any strategy. Just use your common sense, right? So what's our point here with the birthday? Any idea? Well, connection, Casey says, yeah, kind of. Any other ideas, guys? Ah, very good, Eric. Probability does not always make common sense. If you think about it, when we have 50 people in the room, the chance that 90% of them, or the chance is 90% that 2 of them have the same birthday, that's not common sense. We think with only 50 people in the room, the chance of having 2 birthdays the same would be very, very low, not 90% high. So the point we're making here is, hey, probability is not always common sense. You need to have knowledge about probability, or you're going to get yourself into a world of hurt. We're already setting the stage that what? You need an expert on probability, or you could be in trouble. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's what we're doing here. Is it riskier to lay, okay, what are we doing here with this whole gambling thing? Well, whether you, it makes more sense to lay it all on the table or hedge your bets, because what do most people, if you sit down with most people and say, what's riskier, laying it on the table, all on the table, or hedging your bets, what are 90% of the people that you talk to going to say? So we've just told, here's the great thing, guys, we've just told them that probability is not always, sometimes it's common sense, but it's not always common sense. There are situations where it's not common sense. This is another example of that, because if we ask 90% of the people out there, which is more risky, hedging your bets or laying it on the table, most people are going to say hedging your bets. That's what they've learned. Right? If you people are going to hedge their bets, they've been told what? Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. That's considered a what? A way to minimize your risk. Well, we found that we're going to let them know that, well, you might think that, but guess what? That's not the case. Sometimes it makes sense to lay it all on the line. Sometimes it makes sense to hedge your bets. So we want them to, again, we're laying the groundwork that you need to understand this stuff. If you don't understand this stuff, you could be in a world of hurt. So that's what this whole, the gambling stuff is about. It's not about the gambling and how to bet better at the casino. It's about, hey, here's an example of where you might have thought that one way was a better way to minimize your risk, but it is sometimes, but it also is not sometimes. So we're already laying the table for what we want to point out down the road. Does anybody have any questions on that? See, they've been told putting all your eggs in one basket. Well, with roulette, that makes sense, but with poker, it doesn't. What have all advisors told them? That they should put all their eggs in one basket, or they should not put all their eggs in one basket? And here we're telling them what? You know what those advisors said is 100% what? right sometimes and 100% what? Wrong sometimes. It depends on the situation. I mean, the example I give people is this. If I'm driving down the road and I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, right? So I've got 10 different baskets of eggs and they're in the back of my pickup truck and I hit a pothole, what's going to happen to all 10 of those baskets? What's going to happen to all 10 of those baskets? It's going to be full of broken eggs, right? Sometimes it makes sense to have all your eggs in one basket. You sit them on your lap, so if I hit that pothole, what will I be able to do? Protect all of those eggs in one basket. See, if you think about it, that's what an FIA does, doesn't it? Because you've got all of your eggs with the S&P 500 or whatever index you decide to use in one basket, but if you hit a pothole, how badly will they be hurt? As compared to putting 500 stocks in 500 baskets in the back of your pickup truck and you hit a pothole, what's going to happen to all of those stocks? So sometimes it makes sense to put all of your eggs in one basket. Sometimes it doesn't. Do you get that? So probability matters whenever you have to make a choice. The point here is that probability matters not just in games of chance, but what? In everything in life, especially in investments, right? Can you stack the odds in your favor? What's the point here? Having a well-thought-out strategy can stack the odds in your favor, okay? If you don't make a chance work for you, it's going to work what? Against you. And you want this theme running throughout the entire event. If you don't make things work for you, life works in the strange way that they are going to work against you. People aren't naturally lucky or unlucky. We're just talking a little background information here, and then we get into the dating game. Okay? So what do you think the purpose of the dating game is? Well, first of all, guys, make sure that you explain this in a manner that I've listened or watched a lot of tapes, and a couple of times I've seen where you haven't explained the game thoroughly enough up front, that people get really confused going into the game. You can't go into the game unless people understand the whole how this game is working, especially that in this particular game, there is no second chance. You know, once you've dated that person, they're out of the pool. You have to make a decision right then. You're either going to continue you're going to marry him right then, because if you don't marry him right then, they are out of the pool. They either go jump off a bridge, marry somebody else, or they're mad at you and they'll never talk to you again. So they need to understand that particular part of the game. So what is the point here with the game? The point is, for a realistic chance of marrying the right person, you need to have a strategy. Well, is that what we're talking about dating? Well, yeah, we're in this particular case, but what do you think we're going to extrapolate that to? For a reasonable chance of winning anything, including investing, you better have a strategy, because just throwing the dice is not a good strategy, as we saw in 2008. Okay? So we're talking about what? In order to figure out what chance works for you, you must compare the two different things. So making chance work for you, the point here is too early is bad, but too long, waiting too early is bad, but also waiting too long is also bad. Okay? So have a strategy. So we use the first group of 10 dates to rate the field. The point here is a strategy equals going from a 1 in 10 chance to what? A 1 in 10 chance to a 25% chance I'm sorry, 1 in 10. A 1 in 100 chance to a 25% or a 1 in 4 chance. So which one's better? I mean, that's how big a change is that? That's 1 to 25%. That's huge change, right? So what's our point here as we go through with the 36 dates? What's our point here? Our point here is that what? You had to go on a lot more dates. Because you had to go on 36 dates instead of 10 dates. You had to go on a lot. You had to go on almost 4 times as many dates to go up from a 1 in or a 25% chance of being right to a 33% chance right. That's a lot of extra dates. That's 4 times as much work for a very small increase in probability. Okay. And then our tipping point. What's our point here? You can't just blindly follow a strategy. For example, because we've said, hey, going out on more dates will get you what? A higher chance of succeeding. So obviously, the more dates we go out on, the higher chance of succeeding. No, that doesn't work that way. And in fact, most people logically would probably think, well, 50 is the magic number for dates, because after that you start going, no, it actually ends up being 36. Now, do we need to know the complicated math of how we get to this point, or do we just need to know 36 is the peak of probability? So our point here is don't know the math. You don't need to know the math. You just need to know basic thumb rules, and you just can't blindly follow even a good strategy. You cannot blindly follow. You need to understand probability, or you get yourself in a world of hurt. So blindly following any strategy, what do you think our point is here about if you blindly follow even a good strategy, what can happen? Guys, if you blindly follow even a good strategy, what can happen? Well, as we found out in 2008, diversification is a good strategy, but if you blindly follow it, what can happen? You can get killed. You better understand what it is that you're doing. Okay? So perfection is hard. The point here is, let me get this out of here. The point here is avoiding risk can give us a much better chance of success. Do you get that about the dating game? Here, what we're talking about here is that if we just say we don't care about getting the number one guy, if we just finish in the top 5%, which would help us avoid risk, our chances of winning goes up to 70%. So you want them to understand that strategy can increase the odds of success a huge amount. In one of those strategies is avoiding risk. Why do I say that instead of shooting for number one, we go for one of the top 5? Why is that avoiding risk? Why is that avoiding risk, guys? Because if we're trying to get the best rate of return, and that's all we're worried about, we're still going to have a lot of risk there. But if instead we take a step back and say, we don't need all the return, we'll just take most of the return. If we do that, our chances of going up, of winning, go up to 70% chance. So we started out at a 1 in 100, and now we're at a 70 out of 100 chance by having a strategy and avoiding risk, the risk of losing. Do you get that? Avoiding the risk of losing can increase your chance of success a lot. What do you think I'm implying there, guys? What am I promoting there? If all of my stocks, or all my money in stocks, are going for the highest rate possible, I have some level of chance of success, right? But what happens to my chance of success if I make sure that when things go well, I get some of the return, but that I'm never in a situation where things go poorly from me, that I protect my assets? That's a strategy, and that strategy is based on what? Lowering the risk. Do you get that? Super. I'm getting a lot of right answers here. Absolutely, Neil. So your chance of success goes from 1 in 100 to 70 in 100. That's a 70%, or that's a 70 times, not a 70%, a 70 times increase in success. Okay? So what if you could increase your chance? And we talked about that. So, and then when it comes to probability, tax reduction strategies, Social Security strategies, savings investment strategies are all important. Comparison strategies work in everyday life, da-da-da-da. Okay? Or you can rely on averages. So what's our point here, guys? What do you think our point is here, using averages? We use averages every day, right? But what's our point on this slide? By the end, we have the little story about, would you allow your child to be in your neighbor's backyard if there was a pool there and the neighbor said, oh, the average depth is only 2 inches? Would you? Our point here is that averages hide things. Exactly right, Pete. Averages hide things. They are dangerous. Averages hide things that are dangerous. This is a major point. This is one theme you need to make sure you're nailing. See, because brokers always say, don't worry about the losses. The market's always going to what? Come back. Are there any guarantees it's going to come back? Do random events occur? So what's our point about this whole dot game? Is the point about the dot game simply that, hey, computers sometimes put dots really close together and humans always spread them out? Is that the point of this game? Guys, make sure that when you do this game, it's not about having fun. It's about having fun. It's about participation. But it's about, you got to nail this point. Yeah, Pete says random means random. Absolutely. The point here is randomness can play tricks on you. Because what? And the thing is tell me I'm wrong here, guys. Have you heard advisors? Have you heard pundits talk about the fact well, we've just had a big problem here, so obviously that we're not going to have another problem for a long period of time. Have you heard that kind of talk? Yeah, what's Steve say? Randomness is not knowing what's around the corner. Absolutely. Random, because a 100-year flood, guys, can occur when? 100 years from now, or can occur when? Make sure they get this. Make sure they get that a 100-year flood happening tomorrow can also happen next week. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen for another 100 years. And here's a great example to do that. And here's how you can start to nail the broker. And if guess what? Okay, when the market goes down 30% one year and goes down 30% the next year, what do all brokers say the market has to do the following year? If the market's gone down 30% one year and down 30% the next year, what do brokers say has to happen the next year? It has to go, yeah, Casey, right. It has to go back up, right? It's gone down 30% and 30%. There's only one direction for it to go, which is back up. Yes, Jeff, exactly right. Now, here's the funny thing, though, guys. Casey and Jeff, answer this question, please. When the market goes up 30% one year and goes up 30% next year, or the following year, what do the brokers say is going to happen the next year then? Goes up, up, exactly. So when the market goes down 30% and down 30%, what do brokers say the market has to do? Has to go up, obviously. And when the market goes up 30% and up 30%, guess what they say it has to do? Has to go up, obviously. That's an excellent example where what? Randomness what? Plays tricks on people. Make sure you use that example, not at the dot exercise. Actually do it at the end of the coin toss exercise. Do you get that? Does everybody get that? Use that example and let the audience answer for you. And then you can say, well, folks, why when the market goes down 30%, do advisors think the market's going to go up? And when the market goes up 30%, the advisors think it's going to go up. No matter what happens, advisors always think the market's going to do what? Go up. Let the audience say that. And you say, why? Why would they be thinking that? And guess what they're going to tell you? Why do you think the audience is going to tell you advisors are always saying the market's going to go up no matter what happens? Why? How long are they going to be in business if they're telling people, well, I think the market's going to go down next year? How many people are going to buy from them? And let the audience answer that. So do you get, this is, the first time I looked at a tape, I was talking to the advisor doing this. I said, what is the point? If I pull people out of the event and ask them, what was the point of the heads and tails coin exercise? What would they say the point was? And the advisor said, well, they would say that the point of this was that coins can actually end up with heads for many times in a row, or tails many times in a row. It doesn't always mean that you're going to get heads and tails every other time. I said, really, how is that going to make you an appointment, guys? If they think the whole coin exercise is about flipping coins, we've missed a huge opportunity to have them think what? Each flip is 50-50. People who use what happened yesterday to determine what's going to happen in the future are what? Advisors who are using what happened yesterday to make determination what's going to happen in the future are what? Guys, if I flipped a coin for heads and it's gone heads 15 times in a row, what's the likelihood it's going to be heads the next time? If I flipped it 15 times in a row heads, what's the likelihood it's going to be heads the next time? 50-50, you're exactly right, guys. So does what happened 15 times the last 15 years have anything to do with what's going to happen next year? No. And yet, what do all advisors pretend like they know? They whip out, and this is the worst one, they whip out what? Past returns. Or they whip out, hey, this fund is, as soon as I hear this fund, Jeff, can you hear me, Jeff Freebert? Could somebody help Jeff get on the line? Guys, anytime
I can hear you. I was just muted for a second.
So anytime we hear, and you've seen this many times because they usually bring this to you, this fund is a no-miss because it's, here, look, the last 10 years, even 2008, it never lost money. What do you know is going to happen the next year?
Yeah, it's probably going to lose money. For it to make...
Go ahead.
Yeah, for it to make money in that kind of environment, they must be taking crazy risk. That eventually catches up to them.
Guys, it caught up to Peter Lynch. It caught up to long-term capital management. It catches up to everybody. And as soon as people tell me, I mean, you guys should know this. The Morningstar picked the advisor of the decade Morningstar picked the advisor of the decade from 2000 to 2010. Anybody want to guess where that advisor's fund ended up the next year as relation to all other funds? See if anybody knows this. This is an excellent example. Morningstar's manager of the decade, the best manager of the decade, bottom 10, getting close, is bottom 1%. Bottom 1%. 99% of all of his peers beat him in 2011. So that's the kind of point you want to make, that what happened yesterday has nothing to do with going forward. It's not about coins, guys. Coins is just a metaphor for their investments. Do you get that? Okay, what's our lesson? The lesson is you can't tell the difference between randomness and patterns. The point here is you must be an expert on randomness, or you're going to what? Get hammered. Because that's where, that 30-30, lose 30%, or make 30%, and that's where advisors are seeing patterns where none exist. Okay? Because they're saying that no matter what happens, down 30% 2 years in a row or up 30% 2 years in a row, they say the market, those are indicators the market's going to go up. That's an indication of where an expert is seeing things that don't exist. Does that make sense? But it can get worse. So the point here is that, what's our point here about 7%? The stock market average 7%. That 7% means nothing. Averages mean nothing. When people start throwing out averages, it means nothing, because that 7% is for 1901 and 2010. How many of your clients have retired from retired in 1901 and are still living in 2010? So those averages, again, mean nothing. It's a major theme. Averages mean nothing. And what do all advisors talk to their clients about? Averages, averages, averages. So our point on this, on the bear slide here, is that, you know what, 14, 15, and 16-year time periods have happened where guys or investors have lost money each and every year on average during those 14, 15, and 16-year time periods. And do we know which one we're in right now? We don't know for sure. And does it mean 14, 15, 16 means that we could have the next 14 or 15, 16 years going up, or we could have the next 14 or 15, 16 years doing what? Even this graph is deceiving, because just because this happened in the past, do we know what's going to happen in the future? I mean, let's be clear here. We're not just here to paint everything with a bad brush here. No, we're saying this stuff, the market's gone up in the past, the market's gone down in the past, and what does that have to do with the future? It means that the market's going to go up in the future and go down in the future, and trying to bet on which direction it's going to go is crazy. Okay? Be careful about your reality. The point we're making here, just because something has happened a certain way for 30 years or even for 100 years, doesn't mean it can't change drastically overnight. Guys, interest rates were never more than 6% from the time of the Civil War of the 1960s. That's 100 years, and all of a sudden, boom, interest rates went up crazy. So just because something's happened for the last 100 years doesn't mean it can't change overnight. Yet, what do we hear this in the investment industry all the time? It can't do this. It always does this. It always does this. No, there's no such thing as always does this in the financial marketplace, or really anywhere. So, and it's the same thing with interest rates going the other direction. So, what's our point here about the Civil War, interest rates, and then 2002 to current? That, you know what, just because something has happened for the years in the past, it has, again, nothing to do with what's happening in the future, and you better be prepared for what? Anything. You need to be prepared for anything. The point we're making here is a fact becomes a mistake pretty darn fast. Okay? So then I talk about, hey, this is what sent me back to become an expert in those two things, may become an expert in probability and randomness. So the point we're making here with this sent me back to school is that I became a big believer that if you don't make chance work for you, it's going to work against you. So now I start to really leverage the fact that I'm different from all the other people they're working with. I study probabilities and chance. I study randomness. Do I want to be like the broker who is uneducated and is dangerous? You know, if they talk to the market always has is 7%. Well, that would have been a pretty bad thing to tell people in 2001, wouldn't it? Because they'd be really hurting right now. What's our point here with the whole SEC saying you can't show hypotheticals at higher than whatever it is nowadays? The point we're making here is that the market does not average these numbers. And even the police, the people who are supposed to be policing the advisors out there, even they're not talking reality. I mean, they're saying that you can go ahead and say that the market, in your hypotheticals, the market averages 10%. Guys, when has the market averaged 10%? During very short periods of time. And yet even the police are allowing, the people who are supposed to be protecting the public are allowing advisory firms to use 10% as the hypothetical rate of return. That's crazy. It's hard to break. So what's our whole point with this game, guys? What's the whole point of this this color game? The point here is that it's hard to break beliefs. See, we're going to go through it. It's hard to break beliefs. And we're setting it up that the brain works this way because our next point after this game, which is kind of fun and people like it, is the fact that advisors, we need to fix that there, Missy, when we get a chance, that advisors are optimistic. Why? Because we go through the explanation or the logic, the Socratic sale on why they're always optimistic. And remember when we talked to guys about that, when the market goes down 30% and down 30%, they think the next year's going to go up 30%. And when the market goes up 30% and up 30%, they think the next year's market's going to go up 30%. Why are they always optimistic? It's because of when they were born. So that our point about that whole colors game, red, blue, yellow, whatever, is that once your brain gets hardwired, it's hard to break out of that. And we're showing here that advisors' brains are what? Hardwired because of when they grew up, their business experience. Does that make sense to everybody? So what happens is the averages change overnight. The point we're making here is averages are worthless. They can change overnight. So our point with this slide, best of times, worst of times, is that, retiring in 1979 would have been a great retirement. 14.14, that's fantastic. Retiring in 1961 to 1981, 3% rate of returns, that would have been horrible. What's going to happen in the next 10 years? We don't know. You need to be prepared for what? Both of them, because averages lie. See, I don't want to rely on averages. I want to rely on what? Here's your point here is that I don't rely on averages. All those bad things I've been saying about averages, I don't rely on them. That's why I don't rely on them. I use strategies. I am an expert on probability. I became a mathlete. What was the average rate of return for 2000, 2010? The point we're making here is, hey, we don't know what it's going to be the next 10 years. Do you? And anybody that tells you the market's going to go up the next 10 years or down the next 10 years is a big fat what, guys? Liar. Fool. So why is making chance work for us so important? Well, the point we're making here is things can go from bad to truly horrible if we add withdrawals to the conversation. See, so far we've just simply talked about averages being bad. But guess what? Our point we're about to make here is it can get a lot worse if we're using averages when we talk about withdrawing money. And what do people plan to do with their money, guys, when they retire? Withdraw it. As Mark and blah blah blah, statistics can fool you if you don't pay attention. So what's our whole point with this 6%? You know what? An average rate of return saying 6% can either mean you can mean that best case scenario you'd end up with with a 1% higher at the end of that 10-year period. Worst case scenario, oops, if I can get back to it, is you'd end up with 80% loss. Best case scenario with that average is you'd end up with a 1%, see that 101 there at the bottom, a 1% growth in your account. Worst case scenario, if I go back, oops, is you'd end up with $22,000 in your account. Both of them average 6% rate of return. You only were pulling out an average of 6% a year, and you'd be down 80% or up 1%. So guys, where's the risk there? Make sure they get this. Even in the best case scenario, you're only ahead by $1,000, but you're down by 80% in the worst case scenario. So you want to make sure that people get this. Do they see how averages can be dangerous, especially when you're withdrawing money from your accounts? Sequence of returns during withdrawals is always crucial. Rick, you're exactly right. So what have we learned? Oh, and the fact is, guys, you can make this point too. Oops, let me go back here. You can make your point here. if you wait, if you've lost a lot of money and then your broker comes to you and says, hey, we can't pull out money for the next couple of years, what can happen in those next couple of years, guys? When you're retired, that means you're somewhat old. What can happen in the next 2 years when your broker says, well, the market's gone down, we made a mistake, let's wait for the market to return? First of all, do we know it's going to be 2 years or could it be 10 years? But let's say it's just 2 years. What could anything? You could die. You're right, Mickey. You could die. You could be sick. You could one of your children could be sick. One of your grandchildren could be sick, and you need it right then. You can't wait. Okay? So what have we learned so far? So what's the point of the gorilla video, guys? Anybody want to give me a guess on what the point of the gorilla video is? It's cool. It's fun. It's funny. What's the point of the video? Focus on what you're told to look at. We focus on what we're told to look at. Exactly. Everybody said we focus on what we're told to look at. And the problem with that is what? If all we're told to look at is the account value, if all we're told to look at is the what the broker tells us to look at, why might they be telling us to look at only those certain things? And if we only look at those certain things, what can happen to us? All sorts of things that we don't know are happening to us. So we better be looking at everything, not just what we're told to look at. Zach, if you don't pay attention to the right things, we'll miss the grill pound. Exactly. So if you're not looking at the right thing, we talked about that. So have a strategy.
And actually, Mike,
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop you because if you're not looking at the right thing, we just added a little bit of verbiage. That's one of the slides that.
Super. And this is one of the. Thank you, Missy. This is one of the things that Steve added, and this is where he did another short commercial for his business, which I think was a fantastic, genius thing to do. So after he said, if you just look where you're told to look and not looking at everything, that's a problem. So folks, that's what I do with my practice. That's what I do with my clients. I make sure we're not just looking at averages of returns. I make sure we're not just looking backwards at things. I make sure we're not looking at and making guesses at what's going to happen in the future based on things that happened in the past. I use probability. I use strategy. Now, Steve's an insurance-only professional, so he says, I only recommend things where you cannot lose money. None of my clients have lost money using the investments that I offer. I am a safe harbor for people that are sick and tired of people making guesses about the future, people who are making guesses about what's going to happen in the future based on the past, people who are not educated on randomness and probability, people who are gambling with other people. I mean, so he makes a commercial right here, and I think it's a very appropriate time after the gorilla video to make your commercial. So whatever that commercial is, this is a great time for you to tell people what your unique selling proposition is. What is it that you do that your competitors do not do? Does that make sense to everybody? So I make note. This is a fantastic place to do a commercial. So Steve, I think that was a fantastic thing to insert right here. So any questions on that, guys? Great. We're getting a lot of great ideas there. Good. Thank you, Missy, for stopping me because I would have went right by that. Okay, so
Sure.
Have a strategy. Our point here is what? Simply have a strategy, and not just any strategy, but one that uses probabilities to hedge against and eliminate risks. Because we don't know what the future, you got to get them to buy into it. They don't know what the future holds. Neither does any advisor. Guys, if an advisor knew what the future held, where would they be right now? I know where I'd be. I'd be in my yacht in the Bahamas. Or maybe the Mediterranean or Hawaii, Mickey says. Exactly. If you know what the future holds, first of all, you're not going to be working with a client who only has $100,000 or $400,000 or $1 million. You'd be working with clients that have $10 billion. And I use that constantly with clients. That if when they tell me their broker knows this or that and other thing, I say, well, not to be unkind, but if I really knew that much, do you think I would love to work with you? But I know I can't see into the future. I know that I'm human, as is I think every other advisor out there. So we have to plan for the good and the bad. We have to make smart judgments and strategies based on probability and randomness. But I won't tell you that I know what's going to happen in the future. I'm not going to tell you that this fund or that fund or this fund's going to do this or that or the other thing. Because if I did, to be honest with you, I'd be working with people with $10 billion, and they'd be throwing their money at me. If I really had a system that didn't lose money but could make all sorts of money, I only have so many hours in the day, so I would not be working with somebody who only has $1 million or $5 million. I'd be working with somebody who has $50 million and $100 million. That's who I'd be working with. And do you think that rings true with most advisors when you put it that way? You know, another thing I do for people who say that their advisor has some guarantee, some view into the future, I say, you know what? I've got a lot of money, and I'm looking for a great strategy like that too, where I can make 12, 14% but never lose money. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's get him on the horn, and let's call him, and I'm going to give him all of my personal money. I'll probably even take a loan out of my house and put the cash and put that in it too, because anything that would make 12, 14% with no risk to principal, I want in on that. I guess the only thing I'm going to ask of him is that he give me the mortgage to his house if it doesn't work out. And all of a sudden, the people get the fact that this guarantee, quote-unquote guarantee that they gave them is actually not a guarantee, because will they do that? If we call up that broker, what's going to happen to that guarantee immediately when I say that's the deal? Are they going to go through it, or are they going to weenie out? And it's a really great way to have clients realize. I've used it over and over and over to have clients realize, you know what, this guarantee this guy's giving me is a bunch of BS. Because people like to believe, you know, they believe in hope. And when the guy says that he can do this, they kind of want to believe him. So you have to kind of grab them by the shirt collar and bring them back to reality. I don't know why. I don't know why they'll believe this kind of horse hockey, but you see it all the time in the paper, right? All these, well, you saw it with, who's the guy that just got thrown in the clink? Shoot. Well, you see it all the time with these Ponzi schemes. People believe all sorts of things. Madoff, thank you. So plans that use probability. Our point here is that plans that use probability is called one of the plans we use is the sale plan. So pulling out interest worked in the 70s. You know, that's certainly a valid interest, you know, a valid strategy when we have interest rates over 10%, isn't it? It absolutely is a valid. You know what? And then what? You know, worked in the but then inflation will kill you if you just do that. Because what was inflation doing when interest rates were going up 10%? Well, it was going up 12, 16%. So you get eaten up by that. So let me go through that. So then what happened in the 80s? Well, when we had the best bull market the stock market's ever seen, well, then it made sense to what? Pull out both gains and dividends. You know, why not do that when the market's averaging 10, 15, or 30%? But then what happened in the end, if that was the strategy you used? Well, if you died during the bull market, it was great. But if you still were living at the end of the bull market, you got zapped, exactly, the crash. So our point here is that that works fantastic as long as the markets cooperate. But have we seen twice in the last 10 years where that kind of mentality has not worked? So is your strategy, or is this your strategy, or worse yet, what if you don't have a strategy? And you better have a strategy that says what? If the market goes up, you're okay, and if the market goes down, you're what? Okay. Then you worry about running out of money. Okay, so I think you guys all do a great job on this because it's about money. You guys do a great job of pointing out the points when we get to the money. So I'm going to zip through this. I don't think any of you have a problem with that.
And
yes.
A couple slides back, there was actually the last one that we changed, that one right there.
Okay.
What's the flaw in stock market? And it's just referring back to their commercial. That's really
so
all that we...
Yeah, thank you. So Steve just did another commercial here, again, saying that you don't need to worry about running out of money, or my clients don't worry about running out of money for these very reasons, and he goes through the reasons. And again, one last commercial as we kind of come into the last stretch of the race here. So I think it's a fantastic place, again, to put another little commercial. And again, he's not going on and on for 10 minutes on this. It's a 1 or 2 minute commercial here, guys, to let them remind them what you do and how you operate with your current clients and what your thought pattern is that you think making money is great, but protecting it is even more important. So thanks, Missy. Thank you, Steve, again. Great additions to the event. Any questions on these little commercials, guys, before we get off? Because this is the last commercial he makes before the end. Any questions on that? Okay.
Not seeing anything coming through.
Okay, so we have get into the sale. We talk about the buckets. So what's our point when we get to the buckets? Taking the investments you already have. Why do you want to stress taking the investments you already have right here? Taking the investments you already have and mathematically organizing them in buckets can increase your income a lot and reduce them. We don't need new money. Exactly, Mickey. By stressing that take the investments you already have, it tells them that you're not going to go in there and say, we need to change all of your investments. What's the likelihood they're going to make appointments with you if you think they're good, that you're going to go in there and try to change all their investments? High or low? Do they want to come and see you if they think that your solution is move all their investments? Yeah, not, Casey, exactly. They're not going to make those appointments. So you want to stress here, taking their current investments and rearranging them in a mathematical way, they can increase their rate of return and lower their risk of running out of money. Does that make sense? We stress taking their current investments here. This is very important. Taking their current investments. Do not screw up here, because if you infer that they're going to have to change their investments, your appointments are going to go down. Okay, so we go through the. Now, in our example, we're going to basically, our point is what? That you can bring in more income with less what? Risk. By using the bucket strategy, you can bring in more income with less risk. They must understand this. That's what the whole thing about the sale is about. Our point about again, when we're looking at a comparison to bucket 3, we're saying what difference is the economists of but the fact is that we've just been hammering what because in bucket 3 we're talking about what? Growth type vehicles. Bucket 4 we're talking about growth type vehicles, right? So what could be going on in their mind? What have we just done here a few minutes past? What have we told them about making inferences about things, the market's going up? So the market always has to go up. What have we told them? No growth. Yeah, so we have to talk about what if there is no growth for buckets 3 and 4? I mean, what if there is? We have to address it. We just said, hey, anybody making promises about growth in the future could be full of what? Beans. So we better address that. So what we say is, in our third and fourth bucket, our point is that we've modified the bucket strategy using what economists have told us to take into account that if the market doesn't go back up. We've refined it. So we have the most up-to-date methods available that take even into account if the market does not go up. Does that make sense, guys? Because you've just hammered the fact that we shouldn't be saying markets are going to go up. And then we said, oh, and buckets 3 and 4 is for when the markets go up. So we have to address that and say, listen, we have modified that bucket strategy to use what some of the top economists have told us today to make sure that that strategy, that bucket strategy, works even if the markets don't go up next year, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. Does that make sense to everybody? Make sure you do address that. So what's our point when we show this? We're saying that if you haven't put your current investments through this type of strategy-based software, what happens to your chance of chance working against you? If you haven't put your current investments through the sales software, what happens to the chance of chance working against you? High, exactly right, Matthew. So what do we count to say 4%? What is our point here? What's our point here, guys? Hopefully you understand that is pulling out 4% with the way that the markets work and what happens when you withdraw from your investments. Could 4% still put you in a world of hurt? There's been a lot of study, a lot of research done on this lately, and guess what they found out? The 4% is accurate, or the 4% can still put you in a world of hurt? Guys? Hurt, exactly, Casey. Hurt, exactly. It's not. It's too high, exactly. So it works great most of the time. What happens if you don't land in those most of the time? You can end up out of money. So more income by having a strategy. The point here is just like when Sally was getting the best spouse, using a strategy helped. Well, having a well-thought-out strategy increases your income and decreases your risk without changing your investments. Again, I'm stressing what again? Not changing your investments. With your current investments, having a strategy running through the software will greatly enhance the chance of you increasing your investments with less risk of running out of money. So what's our point about the 4 benefits of the sales strategy? It's right there. It's laid out right for you. So what if you don't have a strategy? Well, then you've lost control. You're going to just let things happen to you. And I don't know if you know this, guys, but you know what the number one fear that seniors have, retirees have? It's not running out of money. It's not having Alzheimer's, not anything. It's losing control and everything that entails. So really stress, not having a strategy means you're out of control. You've surrendered control to fate, which would be okay if that was your only choice. But what if we just spent an hour proving to people? Surrendering to fate is necessary, or that they have a choice. We have to make sure that you have a choice. You have a choice of taking control of your finance. You have a choice of taking control of your life, or you can leave it to the fates. And I tell you what, I've sat down with way too many people that left it to fate, and they come to see me when it's too late. So even if you're not in the stock market, again, what's our point here? Do we have control over inflation? But what do we have control over? We don't have control over inflation, but what do we have control over? Whether we have a strategy or not. You know, should we have a plan? We should have a plan that works when? Whether the market goes up or down. We don't know if the market's going to go up. We don't know if it's going to go down. We better be prepared for what? Both. And if you don't have a plan that you're prepared for both, you're in a world of hurt. Okay? So we get to the card trick. What's the whole point of the card trick, guys? Again, it's just simply a demonstration of having a strategy can really affect your chances of winning, all the way from 1 out of 52 to 100. This is, again, this is a great place to cut. If you're going too long, cut this out. Show it after for dessert, after dinner, and you've gathered all the appointments, then you can go back and show the card trick. This is the place that we've already hammered this home. It's a cute little thing to do, but it does take time, and we've already hammered this point home. If you got to cut someplace, it's the place to cut. Okay? So now we get to Social Security. Our point about Social Security is what? If you don't use probability strategy in your Social Security planning, you could be missing out on not hundreds, but thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, guys. And guess how much it costs to do this planning? Nothing. Make sure they get that. So what's our what is your Social Security investment strategy? What's our whole point with this slide? Make sure you get what? All of the money you're owed using these 5 strategies. Make sure you get all, and how many of them have heard of any of these strategies? And guys, we borrowed this right out of the Social Security presentation. So you should be familiar with that. Having a Social Security strategy, this slide here, the point we're making is how important is Social Security to your retirement? And how much time should an advisor spend helping you when it comes to your Social Security? Guys, Social Security makes up a good 40% of most people's retirement income. And if your advisor is not spending time on this, is your advisor doing their job? This is important stuff. What's our point here? You need to find help, and you can't get it from who? You can't get it from the Social Security's office. And then we're going to say here, this is deferring questions. Everybody's strategy is different, so the only way you're going to do that is if you have an analysis done. And we do that at no cost for people to come in to see us that make appointments today. We do that for people who make appointments today. We will run this strategy for them. It's not chicken feed. Again, we're just saying, hey, it's a lot of money. We're not talking about making an extra $100 a year. We're talking about making an extra $10,000 a year with Social Security. So let me get to the point here that there are numerous ways we help people increase their income. There's numerous ways we help people increase their Social Security. There's numerous ways we can help them arrange their affairs, and we also help them increase their income through tax reduction strategies. So using the sale plan, Social Security planning, and an IRS strategy equals what? Oops. Money you don't have to work for. Guys, the point you're making here is what would you say to a person who's rolling in so much money they didn't think it was worth getting more money, and especially when we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars a year, that was owed to them by banks, brokerage companies, and the government, and they didn't have to work for a single hour or invest a single cent in it. It just came to them. What would you say a person is making so much money that they weren't interested in that? And I would make that point to these people so you could see that how foolish it would be for them not to make an appointment with you. So don't rely on crossing your fingers, and then you end up with questions. So again, guys, you don't have to memorize all these points, but you get a theme going through here. It's always being related right back to their current investment and, most importantly, their current advisor and their mentality. And I love Steve's idea. Again, thank you, Steve, very, very much for bringing that to my attention. Those little commercials in there after the gorilla slide, and then again after the flaw in the stock portfolio slide. So I rushed through this, guys. It wasn't for you to memorize anything, but I want you to be fresh in your mind that you're not just going through and entertaining them and having little games and puzzles, etc. There's a point behind all those that will push them towards making the appointment, and more importantly, that appointment holding when they make the appointment, because they're like, they'll know why they made the appointment. They won't make an appointment because you were fun, nice, funny. they'll make an appointment because you're fun, nice, funny, and I need to meet with this guy because he gets probability, he gets randomness, and that'll have a major effect on my retirement. I need to get as much income from Social Security as I can, and as much income with less risk from my investments that I can. So that's why you want them to be making appointments. So we got a question here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say the great question came in from Jeff. What are some of the typical questions that people have at the end of the presentation?
Well, because you're ending with the Yale close, and the way you end it, there will be no questions. If you do it right and use the Yale close, I've looked at tape after tape, videotape after videotape, and I don't see any questions at the end of this because of the way you end it with the Yale close. If you instead open, and you never, ever, 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 ever want to do this, if you open up. So, folks, do we have any questions? Why would you never want to do that, guys? Because the last thing they're going to remember is the last question that was asked. And the last question that's asked is not, how do we make an appointment with you? So I don't want them thinking about anything except making an appointment with me. That's why you use the Yale close, because the last thing that's in their head with the Yale close is what? That they need to make an appointment with you. They're going to sell themselves on why they need to make an appointment with you. When you do that and follow the close the way we lay it out, you're not going to get any appointment or questions, nor have I seen any questions at the end of the event. So I always make sure, especially if it's your first or second event, that let us know, and we'll send you a camera so you can tape it. But I've yet to see any questions. And guys that have done the events, go ahead and shoot some comments here if you've gotten questions. But the ones I've looked at, I haven't seen any. So when giving your presentation, how long should you speak? It should be somewhere between an hour, 15 minutes, and an hour and a half. An hour 15, an hour and a half. Oh, and I'm getting people say no, they've never gotten questions at the end. Good. Any other questions? That was a good question, Jeff. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so again, sorry for rushing through this. I didn't even really want you to take anything away from this except having a clear picture that the point of there is a point to the event. You don't have to memorize every single slide. You want to realize there's a point to the whole event. Does that make sense? Does everybody get what I'm saying when I say that, or anybody not get what I'm saying when I say that? Okay, I'm not seeing any comments. Good. Okay, so next week, next Monday, we're going to concentrate on how to make sure, the 4 things you need to do to make sure you get as many appointments as possible, and the one little secret we have to make sure those appointments hold. Okay? So any questions, email them to Jeff or myself. We'll be happy to work with you on any of those questions. And again, this is your big time these next 2 months, so we'll do anything we can to help you really nail this going forward. So I appreciate you on the call today, guys, and have a great week, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and those that are coming out on Friday, I'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.